r/nosleep. Posted by u/group. Check out author's novel. Beneath the Asylum. Link in description. I'm an elevator repairman. Here's rule number 1, never ride the escalator. A lot of people wanted to know some more rules for elevator safety after my last post. Here's one more for you. Rule number 1, don't ride on the escalator. You say you need an example? An explanation of why not to take these time-saving steel staircases made of gears and chains, pulleys and grease? Just look at those teeth waiting at the bottom for you to forget to lift your feet and your flip-flops. Or worse, let's say your hands should slip into the gap, if you should fall down somehow. It happens. Mostly to younger people but some adults as well. People have had both hands torn clean off. People I know. But the scariest thing about escalators is that they can break. You see them out of service sometimes and it's an inconvenience, but imagine if they weren't being shut down for proper maintenance. One incident in particular comes to mind that bumped this rule right to the top of the list for me. You see, elevator repair guys don't just fix elevators. We also fix escalators, as you may not have known. And those automatic stair machines are the bane of our existence. We're all terrified of them. We all know someone who has had a hand cut off or a finger pulled out by the damn things. They're that dangerous. The malls don't want you to know that. Once I was in such a mall, a dirty low-rent affair like all of our clients, ascending the escalator. I was fairly new and hadn't yet learned to always take the stairs if you can. And never ride on the escalator. Suddenly, without warning, it began to go backwards. Imagine that feeling for a second. You're about 2 stories off the ground, mall walkers and wishing fountains full of pennies below you, and suddenly you begin to fall sickeningly back, downwards and off balance, towards the floor below. That's what happens when the main chain snaps. The weight of all those people pull the steel staircase back downward, faster and faster and faster, until you're in a free fall. That's what happened to me. I was about to step my foot forward off the top and onto the linoleum floor, when I heard the muffled sound of it breaking. I looked back and saw a dozen other people below me, their eyes confused, then panicked. My stomach dropped sickeningly as if I were plunging backwards down the first drop of a giant roller coaster. I heard people below me scream as the escalator began to fall back faster and faster, crashing down like a massive steel train pulled from a hillside by an unseen colossus. My body turned in mid-air and I realized I was flying, without the benefit of low gravity or Superman powers. This brought with it the horrible mental image of what was to come. A tangled mass of human forms lay below me as I plummeted towards them. I saw my tools floating around me as I fell and winced as my flathead screwdriver impaled an elderly woman's eye upon landing. She screamed and I screamed and we all screamed for ICU care after I landed on top of her with a tremendous force that caused my jaw to slap shut painfully. When I opened my eyes I saw a bloodbath all around me. An unfortunate man was howling in pain a few feet away. He had his arm jammed into the teeth at the bottom of the escalator and several minutes later I witnessed what doctors refer to as degloving when an employee arrived to pull him out. If the word itself doesn't paint a vivid enough picture, imagine this for a moment. A man with no skin on his hand flexing and moving his fingers, watching fascinated as he sees his flesh laying on the floor, left behind like a high-quality Halloween mask for his hand. The flesh bunched up and wrinkled, mangled from 100 sharp steel teeth. Blood everywhere. My head was pounding and I felt heat running down the side of my face as a man in a blue uniform approached and asked if I was okay, and could I get up? I said I needed a minute but then realized it was slightly urgent when I saw the bloodied face beneath my boot. I had ended up on top of several people including the now dead octogenarian who I had unwittingly impaled with my favorite screwdriver. The mall manager walked over to me and stared down at me ruefully. "Do you have any idea how much this is going to cost to clean up?" I told him I had no idea. He grabbed me by the arm and pulled me off the other people. At first I mistook his actions for him trying to help, but then his security guard goons grabbed me and started to push and shove me towards his office down a long hallway. My heart began to hammer in my chest. Where the hell were they taking me? "I need a hospital, I think I broke my jaw," I told them, but they ignored me. The dingy floors and walls got dirtier and darker with neglect as they pushed me down back halls to an isolated room. They shoved me in there and locked the door, leaving me alone in the cold room. The space was empty save for a single steel folding chair and a light bulb. It looked like an interrogation room at Guantanamo Bay. I could feel my pulse beating quick and heard it drumming in my ears as I tapped my foot in nervous exasperation. The minutes ticked by, turning into hours. My fear began to increase exponentially as I realized they were going to try and somehow cover this up. But how? Hundreds of people had seen it. It seemed foolish of them to even try. I waited in the room, full of anxious fear, until finally someone came in. It wasn't the manager or a security guard. This man was dressed in an expensive-looking suit and had green eyes and short slicked hair. He looked like a lawyer. "Hello, my name is Gregory. And you are?" "Pissed off is what I am. What the hell is this anyways? You guys kidnapped me. This is an abduction. I'm being held against my will and I want to leave right fucking now." Language. TSK, TSK, he clicked his tongue, pretending to be offended by my salty speech. "I have a proposition for you, here. Why don't you take a look? I think you'll find the terms are quite generous." I was about to spit in his face then thought better of it. They definitely had the upper hand currently. My heart hammered faster and faster in my chest as I read the legal form in front of me. I always had a feeling this section of town was rotten. Now I knew for sure. My service area was suddenly starting to feel a lot less safe. To whom it may concern. It appears as if you have had a bit of a mishap at one of our fine commercial/residential/industrial properties. Please find enclosed one coupon for 50% off your choice of chili or soup in a bread bowl from any Sal's Soup and Sammy's locations. It's our little way of saying, sorry for whatever happened to you. No admission of guilt, just wanted to do you a solid. Your pal, the devil, owner of Loosey Goose Properties Incorporated. I decided to take the coupon and left the office saying I wouldn't tell anyone what had happened. It didn't sit right with me, but the man with smoke rising from his shoulders who stood by the doorway without ever having entered the room told me it was a good idea just to sign it. Either that or join the others who were now being made into happy dogs to be sold in the food court. I really gotta move out of this town, I hate this neighborhood. Rule 3 of this series. I'm an elevator repairman. Here is rule number 3, never step inside without looking. Ready for more elevator safety tips? Alright, here goes. This is rule number 3, previously rule number 2. Really, you'll want to follow all of these, so the order doesn't matter that much, as you'll find out below. Breaking the third rule can easily be the most deadly mistake you ever make. Rule number 3, don't step inside the elevator without looking. You might ask, why not? Well, let's just say that the elevator isn't always going to be there when you think it's going to be there. Let's say you're looking at your phone, as I was, checking the location of your next service call. You hear the doors slide open and don't even glance up as you step forward. But as you take that next fateful step inside, you realize that something feels wrong. Why is everything black around the periphery of the phone? Why do you feel dread crawling up your spine? That's why you look before stepping into the elevator. Because if you don't, you'll find yourself like I did, falling down and screaming as you drop down an elevator shaft made of darkness. And down below are not nice things. It's not a comfortable landing zone. It's quite the opposite. I fell down towards the deadly pit of metal parts and the only thing that saved me was that I managed to grab onto a cable as I was descending. It bit into my hands and I felt it tear the flesh to pieces as I slowed, but I held firm, knowing that I would surely die without some way to slow my descent. Blood began to pour down my arms and I felt the cable start to grind against the bones of my fingers as I gradually began to slow. The slippery gore didn't help to slow my progress though, and pretty soon I found myself speeding up, going faster and faster once again down into the abyss. I forced myself to grip the cable even more tightly and ground my teeth against the agony of the cable rubbing against my phalanges. When I finally got to the bottom, I was not ready for it. My feet finally hit the ground and I felt both ankles break. I screamed and wailed in agony, writhing on the cold hard ground. I called out for someone, anyone to help me. No one came. I waited and waited, calling out over and over again, my desperate cries for help absorbed by the thick concrete and steel surrounding me. Pretty soon I heard a sound from above, and realized it was the elevator coming down towards me. My heart began to pound, faster and faster. I screamed at the top of my lungs. Stop the elevator. There's someone below. There's someone below. I heard it coming closer in the darkness. The sound was soon right on top of me, a metallic shaking and rattling which took over the world and made my teeth tremble in their sockets. It came down on my face and I braced myself for death and shrunk backwards, making myself as small as possible. I felt the flat surface of the bottom of the elevator mashing into my nose and heard the bones inside of it breaking, but then it stopped. Just before it completely obliterated my skull. As I howled in pain and terror I felt shards of bone going down my throat and I coughed and gagged on their sharp edges. MWHY? I screamed through a mouthful of broken teeth. Somebody down there? I heard from just above me. Miss. MGHHPHHHHH. Yes. Go up. My nose was being crushed so badly I couldn't even yell properly. Hang on, let me take my earbuds out. What did you say, dude? Oh shit, hang on man, I'm gonna get you some help. And away he went, casually walking away by the sounds of it, leaving me there with the elevator smashed into my face and barely enough oxygen for me to breathe and stay alive for more than a few minutes. I waited in that claustrophobia-inducing darkness and tried to control my breathing. This too will pass, I told myself, over and over again. Only a few minutes, and he'll be back. But the metal was crushing my face in the most excruciating way and there was no possible way to get comfortable. I twisted and writhed, trying to make room, but found none. The air was thick, the darkness total and complete. Pretty soon I began to panic and hyperventilate, as the time stretched out forever, each second suddenly feeling like an hour or a day. I had no idea how long I was there for, I only knew that I was going to die in that elevator shaft. And then I heard someone running towards me from down the hallway. I heard them hit the button to open the door and they got on the elevator and it began to ascend. It turned out it was another elevator technician from my company who the building manager had called. They hadn't bothered to check on me, just called it in and left me there. The guy's name was Pete, and he had been working in the elevator business for over 30 years. He had heard the emergency call and raced over, leaving the job he had been working on behind. He pried open the door and pulled me out of there, clapping me on the back and telling me I was lucky to be alive. I was incapable of speech and sobbed a thank you as blood poured down my throat from my ruined nose. Sharp pieces of bone stuck out at odd angles from my broken ankles. He helped me out of the building and told me to always remember the rules. I was new and had no idea what he meant. I was so curious that even through the pain I managed to ask him, "What rules?" "You've got a lot to learn, kid," he said. "I've got a whole list of them. Come on, I'll tell you about them on the way to the hospital. Trust me, you'll get to know that place really well."